linaongozwa na waziri wa utalii na wanyamapori Najib Balala. Tupate namna gani sera zinawekwa kuimarisha hali ya utalii nchini Kenya. Moja kwa moja.
For relatively and actively participating and supporting tourism activities in Africa. Africa needs to strengthen the work of the regional blocs to realize full potential of their economies, including tourism. In closing, allow me, honorable ministers and delegates, to once again express our gratitude to Kenya for hosting this meeting. I also want to thank you, honorable ministers, and the UNWTO Secretary General and the AU Commissioner for your presence, which I have no doubt will add value to this meeting. With these remarks, I thank you and officially open this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, for giving encouragement to participants in this meeting. In actually trying to identify the roadmap and strategy of the implementation of the tourism plan moving forward, I liked what you said. We want to convert promises into action. That is very powerful. And I also liked your emphasis on partnerships and recognition of tourism as an envelope that can actually be used for sustainable development growth in Africa. So thank you for those kind words, and I hope they motivate us as we go on with our conversations later. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, do allow me to welcome the Cabinet Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife from Kenya, Honorable Najib Balala, to give his keynote address. Very well.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Minister, my sister from Zimbabwe, Madam Priska Mufumira, who is the chair of the STC, and also the Bureau under the African Union, the Secretary General, Mr. Ambassador Zurab Kashvili, I thought I got it right, who I want to appreciate, came from a very busy schedule all the way down to Kenya for the first time since he's been elected as a new Secretary General of United Nations World Tourism Organization. So we highly appreciate your presence here. Madam Amani Abu Zaid, thank you very much. Commissioner, you have been dynamic in this agenda, and I'm glad finally, after we met in Abuja just a few months ago, we managed to conclude to host this meeting. I appreciate your presence as well as moving this agenda forward. Colleagues, ministers, mine is simple. Mine is to welcome you in Kenya. We appreciate this meeting taking place here. Tourism is very important for Africa. It's not only going to be important for the future. At the moment, we are only 68 million tourists who come to Africa. It's a small percentage in terms of the global number that we have. The arrivals internationally is 1.3 billion people traveling. What we get in Africa is only 68 million. In 2030, the estimation by UNWTO is 134 million. Currently, people employed in tourism is 21 million in Africa. Our target is to achieve by 2030, we have 100 million people employed in the continent of Africa. What do we do to stimulate it, to make it work? The problem we have is that the continent of Africa has been branded and tagged to be a continent that is the image of Ebola, the image of chaos, the image of diseases, and the image which we don't deserve, all negative images. What are we doing ourselves as nations of Africa to change that image to a better image. I believe the continent of Africa is where the future is. The continent of Africa has a diverse product that we are proud of, from beaches to mountains to deserts to culture to safaris to wildlife. Everything you can count in the world is available in Africa. In fact, much better preserved than any continent in the universe. But why is the branding and the image of the continent is negative? What can we do to make it positive? And that's why I want to appreciate colleagues, ministers, and delegates. Today we are here as a turning point for the African Union, UNWTO, and we, the nations of Africa, that we make a decision to establish an entity that will serve us and change the narrative from negative to positive. So we can stand against unbiased travel advisories. And yesterday I made it very clear that it's unfair when an incident, a small incident happens, blown out of proportion, and then brand the whole continent to be the image of that incident. And we have seen the Ebola disease. All of us in Africa suffered because we were branded as one country. Well, we are 54 countries in the continent of Africa. And that's why we need to change that narrative. Africa is rising. Is rising because we have the youngest population in the universe. We are now, our middle class is faster growing. And probably we should consider intra-Africa travel rather of just depending on people from outside the continent. But we need to improve a lot of things. We are aware that we need to put priorities. Number one is security. And that security, I can assure you, it is more perceived to be bad security than real in Africa. Because if it was bad security, we would not have existed as the people in the continent of Africa. That's why security is important. Our government are investing heavily, and I can assure you that Africa is safer than most of other places in the world. Number two is the product. I believe we have better products in the continent of Africa, from the beaches of Gambia, from the delta of